Guten Abend.
Guten Abend.
So, two Germans talking English, meaning no humor, straight to the topic.
Typisch Deutsch.
Okay, Nadine, vinyl on a budget.
Mhm.
You can't expect too much from me tonight because originals, soul, funk, disco is for sure one of my many, many weak spots. I have, of course, some of those editions, but mostly from Vinyl Me Please. You on your channel are heavily involved in the topic of funk, soul, disco, and you have an impressive, amazing, unbelievable, cool collection of originals, right?
Correct, yes.
So the topic originals on a budget, how does that topic feel to you, feel for you?
At first I thought, oh, that might be easy, because in my mind I have some of these records for 8-10 years, and in my mind there were these prices. So when I prepared for the stream, I was having a bunch of records and I was checking the prices, and I was like, every third record I was like, what? Oh no, this is not budget at all. And it's it's tremendously difficult, especially in soul, but it's also getting in with disco records, because they're starting to be sampled a lot,
Yeah,
to get stuff on the budget. That's really, really difficult.
I can imagine it won't get easier, right? So,
Exactly.
so we have to maybe around this topic, around this term, on a budget. This is,
Mm.
of course, a relative term. If we are talking 80s music, Police, Grace Jones, then you really can talk on a budget. But also in your area, the budget is higher in a way. That's the only difference, right? Or are there still very, very cheap, let's say 10, 12, $15 records?
Yes, that's absolutely possible, but you also have to consider the region you live in. In
Hmm.
Germany, it's usually more difficult to get soul, funk, and disco records. When I'm in the United States, for a record which is here about 25 euros, it's they're like 5 or 10, because obviously it was more often sold in the United States than in Germany or in some other countries. So it's always depending a little on the region. And the next thing is that some of these records were used for parties. There were,
Yeah.
so getting records in near mint condition or VG++ condition is also, on many cases, almost impossible. And I have some examples which I would choose. You will be surprised.
So you're in the same area like the collectors who are into punk, reggae, that they have those problems that the
Yeah.
records they like are heavily,
Mhm.
how is the term?
Loved, very well loved.
Okay, very well laughed. Yeah. Okay. Heavy rotation I was looking for. Yeah.
Also,
Okay. So what have you prepared for starters?
I have prepared. I thought we'd start with the late 60s, work
Hmm.
our way through the 70s, and end up with early 80, 81.
Let's end up with Bonnie M.
Not at all.
Okay.
So, very
I
good
tried.
point. Yeah, very good. For us Germans, Bonnie M is also very special.
Of
Oh,
course.
so, no, what I tried to do is not to include the usual suspects. So there won't be Bee Gees, there won't be Al Green, there won't be Aretha Franklin. So these genres of
Thank you
music have
very
so
much.
many layers. So for me, that's very good. So let's start with 1968 and Vivian Reed.
Okay.
So this, what you see, is a 20 euro record here in Germany, and it has a G cover. And Vivian Reed was a television person. She did also Broadway things, and this is her debut album. And she had a great hit on that, which was called Yours Until Tomorrow, which was written by Goffin and King, great songwriting couple. And this is from the beginning to the end, a very soulful late 60s record. So way to go. In the United States, this record is between $5 to $10. Here in Germany, a G cover,
Yeah,
20
it's
euros.
ringware, right? It's not that she's
Absolutely.
looking
It's absolutely ringware. So this is a 20 euro soul record in Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's a
But
great.
I consider that for an original, for an first pressing,
Yes, of course.
of original, still on a budget, for sure.
Yes, yeah. I do have most of the records I have are originals. I always wanted to have the original from Germany, Netherlands, but most of the time the original from the United States.
So country of origin. In that.
Exactly. Okay, so a classic. This is Usual Suspect, but she never had really the breakthrough she should have. She was still very underrated. This is a record from 1969.
Okay.
Roberta
I
Flack.
know that. Why do I know that? Oh, yeah.
Because it includes the track The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face.
Right, and there has been a recent reissue, hasn't there?
Yes, exactly. Great that you're asking.
Oh, big reissue.
A reissue, and I tried to open it up and nothing's falling out. With LP and CD, and I wanted to buy this because in the advertisement it says it's an autographed card included. And when I got the record, it was obvious that it was a printed version. But otherwise, this is a very, very nice reissue. You have the LP, you have CDs with outtakes, because she recorded that whole album in one take. That's why it's called First Take. And it's a tremendously, tremendously good record. And from the beginning to the end, it's just great. And you have to consider that this was released in 1969. The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face became a hit in 1972 because it was used in a movie, something called Place Misty Blue, Misty something. And that's with Robert Redford, I think. That's a great movie about a crazy stalker. So, yeah.
So did you compare the original against the reissue?
Yes, but you also have to consider that with the original, you likely have some surface noise because these were very well loved. But I have to say that the reissue is better sounding.
Okay.
Because it's digital. They digitally enhanced many things, so you can improve some of the recordings.
So if you're into soul and funk, you have to live with the fact that you almost never will find the perfect copy.
This depends. Like a record with this, I will always keep it because it's signed by one of the songwriters. I don't know if you can see this.
That's amazing. Yeah, I see. I make you big. Wait a second, please.
Thanks. Yeah. So I hope can you see that?
Yeah, we can see that. I can't read it. To Nadine. And the rest gets difficult.
That's Leroy Hudson, who signed it because he was the composer of Trying Times. And I found out his address and sent the record to him. And so, yeah. So with record like this, this ones have been sold many times. So if you really want a near mint version, this is possible on records who have been sold many times. But you won't get it in the dollar bin, or if you're lucky.
Yeah, you have to be extremely lucky. Let's forget the dollar bin for a second, because then you also can play lottery in a way. But I think being a soul funk disco fan here in Germany is not the very easiest position, right? It's not ground zero at all.
It's very difficult. That's a niche in a niche in a niche. And the first time, before I had my YouTube channel, I had a blog. I still have that blog, and I got requests. I liked the music and all of that. Could you make some recommendations? So I thought instead of writing all these mails, I could do a video, and I actually started with doing German videos, and I had like 2 views because it's just not. Germany is not the target group for this, and that's why it's difficult to find good, decent records. Or if you find them, they are not just cheap.
And how do you manage to get them? The usual ways, Discogs, going to the United States, or are there countries or cities here in Germany or maybe the Netherlands? I can imagine.
Yeah, I was looking for a record which was 20 years ago, 1,000 Deutschmarks records. It was way before Euro. And I was like, no way, I can afford that. I was just in my junior years. And the record store owner from Cologne sent me to the Netherlands. And after a year, after checking every possible record store, I found a record which was in Deutschmarks currency, 18 euro. I found the record for 18 euros after a year. And it was a soul record. It was produced and written by Barry White and Gene Page. And it was 18 euros in a soul and in a reggae and hip hop store.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that might be also good if you find something like that in a record store that is not specialized on it. You might even get lucky because he just want to get rid of it and maybe doesn't know what he has there, right?
Exactly. That's I found this record, and you have that moment when your brain is not believing what you're seeing. So after it was like, oh my God. And I was holding it that way, and I looked at the price, and I was going to the counter, and he was like, oh, great, you found something. It's not my genre. I read Barry White on the cover, so I priced it with Barry White records. So it was, and I never wanted to finish a transaction so fast in my life as with it in the store. And I got out of the store and I was looking at it. And he was like, "Is it good?"
And I said, moment, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Poker face. Poker face is needed then. So then that was one of the beautiful examples of how you got lucky. And but how far do you go for the grails? Let's leave this OG on a budget for a second. What was the toughest one you got?
I was looking for a record for 20 years, and you have to imagine that Discogs exists, I think, till 2000, and now it's 223. So in 23 years, this record showed up exactly 6 times on Discogs. Okay. And during my channel, where I always recommend this record, there's finally a reissue which came out. Someone got in touch with me. I said, I have the record, and we mailed for and back, and then we had a deal, and I sent him my shipping address, and he was like, "You're in Germany?" And I said, "Yes." "You should have told me before." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I don't ship to Germany." And I was like, "Why not?" And he said, "German post is not good." And he said also, he lived somewhere in the country. He said, "I have to drive 1 hour and 30 minutes to the post office. And sending something overseas is very complicated. I don't have very much interest in all the paperwork, and it travels very far. And I know it's a rare record, and maybe it comes to you and it's broken and something like this." So I thought, okay, I wasn't on vacation this year, and I got into a plane and picked it up.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Okay, that's really going far.
Yeah.
So you took a plane and got your record. How amazing is that?
Yeah, and
I need to see this record. You have it?
Yeah, of course. So there's a Vinyl Me Please reissue I'm going to show you first. I think this came out in 2019.
Okay, I don't have this, no.
And it's gorgeous. I'm not.
Is it in the Essential series, or is it just an?
It was an exclusive pressing.
Exclusive. Okay.
Here on the back is the silver. It's an exclusive pressing, and I'm getting more and more into colored vinyl. Usually, I think I'm still have in my mind that it's not the same quality, but
look at this beauty. Yeah,
this is just awesome.
of course. I mean, this is a girl's record. Come on with the
Yeah.
with the,
Yeah, maybe they took it from the cover, but this is just
it's
I
beautiful.
it's
Damn it.
absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And the thing was that when they did the reissue, they got in contact with the producer of the record because he was also the husband of Barbara Harwood. And
Yeah.
she died, and they got in touch and said, "Hey, we want to do a reissue of this album. It's a holy grail and all of that." And then they said, "Well, we don't even have a record. We don't even know where the master tapes are, so don't even ask about it." So Vinyl Me Please, or Coal Mine, who did it for Vinyl Me Please, had to do a needle drop
Ah, okay. Okay.
from a
Interesting.
mint copy of that
Yeah.
record. And I must admit, I'm not a big fan of this. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not such a big fan of it. But if you have no choice, then do it and get the people to
Get the
have,
idea. Exactly.
yeah,
Be transparent with it, and so you can
yeah,
decide.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and this is the original. It's still in shrink. And the guy who got it said he opened it up. He found it in a bookstore many
Wow.
years ago,
Wait
and
a
he
minute.
opened it up just one time and played it only one time. So
And
it's
sounds way better than the needle drop, right? Don't say no to me.
how can I? Okay, let me tell you this way. It has been less than 500 of these records have been made on a private
Okay.
press, where they're not were working with the highest standard of industry. So with the possibility of enhancing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just one of the greatest. As it's just the thing is, there's a beautiful love story behind it. The producer of the record, Steve Rees, made a contest for the
Yeah.
community. It was in the late '60s, and she was taking part in the contest, and he fell immediately in love with her, and she sang just beautifully. And so he created his own record label to do a record with her. The label lasted only 18 months, and she was the only artist on that label. But it's an absolutely stunning story, and it's a fantastic record, absolutely fantastic.
Which year are we talking, Nadine? I don't know if you mentioned
1970. 1970.
1970.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Imagine we are talking 53 years now
yeah,
of a
and
record that has seen 500 copies.
yeah, and to my knowledge, less than 30 are known to be in existence.
30.
Yeah,
Wow.
less than
Wow.
30. So that's from
Yeah.
my knowledge. So
So,
that's
if I understand you right, you also have it in an amazing condition, right? The shape is
absolutely. You can still see the shrink from 1970 in some parts, and the record has only been played once. So yeah,
top. Wow. So that's your icon.
one of them.
One of them. Okay. So
One of them. It was
I think it's quite impressive. So not an OG on a budget, but an amazing story. Thanks for sharing
absolutely.
this.
You're welcome.
You have other vinyls on more or less on a budget for us?
Yes, of course. I have a whole bunch.
Okay, cool.
So here we are, Etta James.
Yeah, I know
She
her.
is, at last, she did, who grew up in the 90s knows the Diet Coke spots, where a very good looking man was working in the streets and women from the office were looking at him. So she made that soundtrack, I Just Want Your Love, I think it was. Yeah, I Just Want to Make Love to You. And she said, she also did I'd Rather Be Blind.
Mhm.
But this one is also from 1970, and it's from the beginning to the end an absolutely great recording. It's between 10 to 20 euros.
10 to 20, the original in a good shape.
Yeah,
That's what we can for sure call vinyl on or G on a budget.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Why? Was it a big success? Or so meaning many pressings, or is that not in such a high demand? How?
Like you said, for European, it's difficult to find soul records. It's not so much a common thing, soul stuff. So people were there in America who obviously bought it. Fans bought it. They had it in background music. So yes, there are copies out there. and there are some of them out there, and that it's not a very, like you say, oh, I would love to have that Etta James record from 1970. Oh, that would be so amazing to have that. Some people just even don't know that this record exists. They know the greatest hits of her, and they have those kind of albums, but not these.
Now that Vinyl Me Please, I think Vinyl Me Please plays quite a role in this soul funk disco area when it comes to the reissues nowadays. Are you under the impression that due to those reissues, the originals are in a slightly higher demand, that people get aware of them, and through those reissues they get into the originals? Or do you think that has no influence at all?
Some of it, but the thing is, why are they doing the reissues? I have, for example, up here 2 reissues, and I'm a huge fan of these Vinyl Me Please reissues. Like this Spirit in the Dark from Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
This is a great, also great coloring album. Also
metal effect, right?
Yeah. Oh, this is just a stunning recording, packaging and everything. So they also did a reissue of Tough Guys from Isaac Hayes. This is an easily finding record. This is a $5 to $10 record, but like I said, there are party records. Finding a good copy, a nice, with today's standard of how music should sound. You know, back in the days, you are used to have Spotify and all of that to have a good sound. That's difficult on those old pressings sometimes. So I think the Vinyl Me Please doing this is a reason that people who were not so much interested in this getting to know it. And if I would be new in this topic and not so crazy as I am, I would say I should go for the Vinyl Me Please. I get a great packaging, a great sounding record. So there's 2 sides to that story.
On the other hand, with the original, you always have the icon and the artifact. Never underestimate that. Never underestimate that.
Exactly. All right. Ready for next one?
Of course, always.
Always. So this is actually a women's record, and the record companies back in the day in 1970 refused to release that album because they thought it was too depressing. And this is Doris Duke, I'm a Loser. And this is considered as one of the greatest deep soul records in music history.
Okay.
So she meets a guy, she falls in love, she splits up, she meets another guy, he turns out to be a pimp, so she gets a fast woman, and some tracks she's thinking about suicide. So, but this record reflected many women's attitudes and views back in those days. So finally, a record label released it in 70s. It became a minor hit, but and Doris Duke is a fantastic singer, and you know, she had the opportunity, or the Jerry Williams Jr., who wrote and arranged all of the songs of this album, had a hit in the can, which was called She Didn't Know. And this record was released by Dionne Warwick, became the record of the year 1970. And Doris was furious that he gave the song to her. And then she had some alcohol problems, so she never get the breakthrough she deserves. But this is an outstanding, fantastic record. Around 20 euros.
Again, wow. When you say, this is important, when you say around 20 euros, you're talking 20 euros here in Düsseldorf or Cologne? Or are you talking New York City?
I'm talking mostly United States.
Okay.
In Germany, it's very difficult finding. I didn't even know which record store I should go. There's one record store in Hamburg, which is absolutely great, pure soul records. I love that store. This could be a place to find this record, but this is something not very obscure, but it's one of the lesser known stuff. So I wouldn't even know where to look for.
So do you get your records, your originals, via Discogs, or do you have your stores here in Germany and the surrounding countries where you go, or do you do both?
I did a lot with Discogs, but I stopped about 3 years ago, really doing something with Discogs. Quality issues. if my near mint is maybe something different than for somebody else. So I have records totally beaten up cover, wrong version. That
So this, so to interrupt. So this, but
Mhm.
for a 50-year-old record, this is near mint. Consider that it's 50 years old, and so you can say it's near mint. This kind of near mint,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. So there was then you send pictures, and then the seller says no, it wasn't there when I send it to you, and
Mm. Okay.
this is why I'm not so much into it. So I look in stores in the United States
Hmm.
on their websites. I do have a network, build up a network to know what's going on, because what I've learned, like with the Barbara Haywood record, I wouldn't have gotten it over Discogs or eBay, or maybe somebody put it on Discogs, and I wouldn't be fast enough, and it would be gone. I had to wait a couple of years again. So when I was in the United States, I had the great opportunity to meet a high roller collector, and he said, well, we discussed, and I said they're just not out there, and he said, well, some kind of records are just being sold, traded in certain circles. You need to know someone who knows someone who has the
Mm.
record. With some of these records, it's not working with eBay or Discogs. So
There is, I already marked some questions for a later time, but there is one question because I really want to know it too, because I asked that myself the whole time when I listened to you, because what you show us here is not the usual radio stuff or whatever. So Nadine, where did you get all this knowledge accumulated over the decades, or
there is nothing, not really a book or a place. Maybe I should write one, a book where you can read about. Good idea. About this thing. So what I
or
did was
start a
actually
YouTube channel, Nadine?
good idea. Oh, you were making a joke.
Ah, sorry.
German one making
No,
a joke.
because
Oh,
everybody who is now desperately seeking for Nadine's channel, you have you just click in the video description down below. There is a link to her channel. So if you're into this stuff and want to watch the videos, subscribe. Sorry. So yeah.
thanks.
So again, where did you accumulate the knowledge
So
in the
like
Cologne discourse?
no, they were playing also The Usual Suspect.
Yeah.
And in the years where I could have gone to the disco, it was around the late 80s they weren't playing that. So how did that happen? Like I said, I went a lot of time in record stores in the Netherlands, all over the place, and I was just browsing through records and checking out. Oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, and thankfully in the record store you can listen to those records, and so that's how I got my knowledge. And so
Mhm.
I checked out the artists and the history, and that's absolutely fascinating. So that's how it happened.
So, in a question I always love to ask someone when it's at least the first time here on my channel,
Mhm.
as I'm back into vinyl now the 8th year, so not long.
Mhm.
Did you stick to vinyl the whole time, or was it coming back or getting new into it, or did you did you stay with it?
So actually, I'm into records since the early 90s,
Okay. Wow.
because when I was in my teenage years, Elvis was the most gorgeous looking person for me on earth, and he could sing. So, and I'm as a child early on, I was always fascinated with the record collection of my father, because
Mhm.
the covers were so beautiful. I was spending hours in front of this record. I was not allowed to touch the record player, but I was looking at the covers, and for me, it was the most amazing thing to have this plastic plate and music coming out of it.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to have Elvis records. So when I went into record store, I went straight through the Elvis section. Nowadays, I wish I could turn back time and look for other stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I was always into vinyl, and also many of this music you just could find on vinyl. There was no Spotify. There was nothing at that point. There was no
Yeah.
YouTube at that point. So you had to buy vinyl.
Okay. And you stick with it. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So you're one of those veterans, right? And you just mentioned the time machine. I can imagine that those veterans who are used to finding the light blue triangle, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon in the €5 bin, are really missing that times and missing probably all those lost opportunities. And so this is also one of the reasons we are trying to establish this original on a budget topic a bit more in regarding certain genres. So, but as you have shown us, there are still amazing opportunities. I mean, finding these copies 50, 53. This is always something that fascinates me. We are talking about a 50, 55, 60-year-old artifact, and you can get that for €20 in a good shape. This is a stunner. And I think it was Angelo who earlier wrote a new record is 30 to €45 nowadays. I think if you see now the new Depeche Mode, it's, I think, €45. So this is for sure on a budget, and still on a budget, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's also a little traveling in time, because also with the cover art of that year, that leads us directly to the great Otis Clay.
Okay.
Trying to Live My Life Without You. This cover screams 70s, right?
It does, for sure, yes.
Yeah. So this is 1972. He wasn't having so many releases, but this is, I think, one of his most famous one. And it's about like a lost love, and he sings the whole album about that. And this is also from the beginning to the end a great album. So this one I got, I think, for €10 a couple of years ago. And this was also one you have to consider. This is not super great, you know. This is not near mint or anything like this. But a record with this condition, I looked it up, is now €50 on Discogs.
So that's what happens.
That's what's happened. So this is
nowadays.
Yeah. So if you have a chance, check that out. That's a great record from 1972.
Yeah, and still, Nadine, €50 nowadays, it can be going on and on and on. And if people who knows what they are talking about, like you, recommends this, which is quite often a valuable recommendation, the prices might get higher and higher and higher, right? You never know.
I bought this record a couple of years ago. Betty Harris Pro Perfection. It's from 1969. It's a compilation of her singles. I bought this
again. Signed. Excuse me the interruption.
Yeah, again signed. Yeah.
Wow.
Again signed. So first, before I met her in person in the UK, I was very lucky to meet her. And she, first of all, she refused to sign it because she said, "I'm still angry because back in those days I didn't get a dime because this was released." And but I said I came all the way from Germany, and it would be great if you. So she signed it. So this one I bought between, I don't know, 15 to 20 euros a couple of years ago. Nowadays I've seen it between 200 and 300.
Okay, but the cover art is stunning. It's a stunner. It's so beautiful.
This is such a great, and you haven't seen the label yet.
Okay, and a good condition. At least on first sight. Cool.
Yes.
So you did it, this one.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is just a fantastic record. And for Record Store Day, there came out a compilation from Betty Harris. So she did some great tunes. But I'm like, what happened between now and 8 years before I bought this? You know, what did they destroy them, or what's? Or
no, it's called the vinyl resurgence. Nadine, have you heard of it?
Really? So people are now into vinyl.
I've heard that more and more people get back into vinyl. I don't know.
Maybe I should do a YouTube channel. Great idea.
Yeah, try that.
I try that. Okay, is it? I might ask you for advice. So
yeah, give you some advice.
All right,
maybe we can do a stream together.
That would be great. Maybe some other people might be interested in that topic. That's great, Michael. All right, now coming up for me, one of the greatest vocal groups ever.
Okay.
And I watched a video a couple of weeks ago where an opera singer, trained opera singer, is analyzing a live recording from that group. And she was stunned and speechless and say, oh, how they opened up this and this is difficult and they made it look so easy and all of this. And they are mostly famous, known, and also here in Germany for one track. And this is When Will I See You Again?
Yeah.
The 3 degrees.
The 3 degrees.
So there is,
Look at
this
it.
is, I think if you're into soul, if you are
Again, signed, Nadine? You're kidding me, right?
No, I'm not kidding you. It's again
Wow.
signed. So I also have a concert poster from 1974 from Hamburg, where which Valerie signed for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little crazy about that, but anyway, it's absolutely a great record. This has been sold millions and millions of times, so you can get it very, very easily. And I show you. Valerie is laughing when so I showed for a short time. You can make a snapshot, so I close it again. This were very much.
No. Take your time, Nadine. Take your time.
Yeah, okay, I take my time. So I describe a little bit. They're wearing dresses, and when they were taking, because I was asking Valerie about that photo shooting, and she said, honestly, we didn't know that it was a see-through thing. Everybody around said it looks great, and don't worry, nothing. And
Yeah,
she
come
said,
on. I'm not experienced in this regard, but you know when you can see through when you wear something, don't you?
Yeah, but it depends on the lighting, on the.
That's true. That's true.
You know, so that's the thing. So, and she said then the record got released, which became our most successful one. And she said you can't imagine what our parents were thinking.
Of course.
So,
what year are we talking again?
73.
Imagine that, and that in the United States. Signed by all 3 ladies. John Bandy wants to know.
No, it's just signed by Valerie Holiday. Sheila Ferguson left the group in the mid 80s. I'm still trying to track her down, but she's difficult. And the third lady unfortunately passed away from cancer a couple of years ago.
Of course, Angelo Kelly is an expert when it comes to see-through things. See?
Yeah.
You know.
So this is one I absolutely recommend. You get it between 20 to 30 euro. It's a double LP from the 3 Degrees live in Japan.
Of course.
And it's been done on silent vinyl. So it has been a fantastic audio quality. I'm far from being an audiophile, but this sounds just amazing. And what do you get?
We're talking an original here. We're talking a Japanese.
Yes,
press.
of course.
Okay.
Michael, we only talk of originals.
This is an original.
This is an original 1975.
Yeah. Good that I asked. I would have. Cool.
Yes, and not that you get the obi, which is, I've learned the Japanese word for belt. You get also included in that package between 20 to 30 euro a sheet, a Japanese sheet. You get not just a sheet, you get a calendar from 1975 or 1976. I don't know exactly, with some stunning pictures of the ladies in concert and in Japan between 20.
And still all included, which is very, very special, Nadine. This is also not so common that you have all this stuff still in the record. Amazing.
And also you get, once again, the obi is in between, and a very nice picture of the ladies.
Yeah. Cool.
And like I said, I can't praise these women enough.
So they are also on a budget, right?
Yes, we're talking exactly. This is between 20 to 30 euro. This one, and the other one I showed you. Hold on for a second. 5 to 10.
Wow, 5, amazing. But again, those are the big hitters in a way. They pressed, as you I think you mentioned, they pressed millions of those.
Yes, exactly. Brands. This was the most successful one. It includes When Will I See You Again? Take Good Care of Take Good Care of Yourself was a later one, but I didn't know each and every track on this album is actually a hit.
Yeah. See, Supreme mint minus condition were $3 to $5 each. Yeah. And you know what? I would get those. This is interesting. Those are amazing records. And I'm on a similar hunt right now. I get very heavily into the first German pressings of ECM, the ECM label. Some of
Hmm.
them are expensive, but some amazing records aren't at all. And those records are in pristine condition, because this is quite the opposite. People who bought those ECM records, they really took care of their vinyl from the get-go. Yeah, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, but sometimes you have soul people who also take care of their stuff, and you get them in pristine condition,
Yeah,
also for a
yeah,
bargain. So
yeah,
this one is in this one is in very good condition,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
5 to 10 bucks.
Looks like a new reissue,
Yes,
except for
absolutely.
the autograph.
Yeah, except for the writing. I tried to remove it, but I couldn't get it off.
No, please don't.
All right, we
You
are
have more?
getting into. Sorry.
You have more. Wow, cool.
I have a whole bunch. I could fill hours. So
Okay.
we are starting now. We are moving into 1974. This is Bunny Siegler,
Yeah.
and he worked for Philadelphia International. He also wrote some great stuff for the Three Degrees, for the OJs,
Okay.
and he released also some albums. And this is one I absolutely recommend. That's How Long I Will Be Loving You. This is a promo copy also. I haven't seen the promo copy on Discogs. Actually, I found it in a store, but this is a 10 to 20 euro record.
And you have a promo.
I have the promo, but it has some water damage on it. It's not close to be but it's a great sounding record, and that's what matters.
But you're into the 12 inches, right? You're not, because this soul funk genre also is sometimes heavily into 7 inches. That's not your cup of tea.
Northern Soul is very much into 7 inches, and there you
Mhm,
have some 7 inches which start at 1,000
mhm,
or 10,000 or 20,000.
mhm.
The thing is, I don't want to even start with it. I would
Okay,
have to
I
sign
get it.
bankruptcy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a huge topic, and it's just crazy. All right, more serious stuff now with the great Millie Jackson from 1974, Caught Up.
Okay.
So Millie Jackson is a great R&B funk soul singer, and in 1974 she decided that she wanted to move her stage show. She did some rap, and she was one of the first women to rap on records, to
Okay.
put that on an album. And this is one of the greatest concept albums you can imagine. Side, it's about a relationship. There's a man torn between two women, his wife and a girlfriend. And the first side is about the girlfriend, that she has to wait for the man, that she's tired of hiding, and there she covers If Loving You Is Wrong. And the B side is the perspective of the wife, that she said, I'm tired of waiting, and this is all over, but the shouting, and just then the relationship is finished. So this
Okay.
is a great concept. And somebody said, politics are changing, fashion is changing, but people's emotions are not. So this album
Yeah.
is as relevant as the day it came out.
Again on a budget. Again
10,
50.
10, 10, 10, 10,
10. Okay.
10.
On a
And
budget for sure.
on the budget, for sure. And also some writing on the cover. I'm sorry for that.
I don't mention that anymore, because otherwise I sound like a broken record, and I'm not
Yeah.
near mint anymore.
All right. Now we have a usual suspect,
Yeah, I
but a
see
record.
Angelo is also asking, do you have records that are not signed?
Yes, of course.
Probably an Angelo Kelly record, right?
Yes, but he's touring again, so maybe we can
So
change that.
maybe you get lucky.
Yeah. So John said the follow-up maybe even better. The follow-up to that is Still Caught Up. And John, I'm having a problem with the fake applause on this record. She covered Loving Arms and all of this. Like she did a follow-up because Caught Up was so successful that she did a follow-up. I have it
Here
also.
he is. Okay, I'm looking for a John. Now I see.
Yeah,
Follow.
that's him, the piano player. And so I have some issues with the fake applause, but
Mhm.
just you can't go wrong with a Millie Jackson record to begin
Yeah,
with.
but fake applause is that what have to? Is it like El Bandi or
No, of course not the sitcom fake applause. It's like a concert situation where
uh,
there's fake
fake
applause, and
ones? Yeah,
yeah,
sounds not so tempting. Yeah.
no, that's not my thing. So let's get into a little disco. That's some soul now. Let's
Bonnie
get
M.
into.
Bonnie
Of
M.
course not.
Okay,
Isaac Hayes, known for Shaft.
of
That's his
course.
biggest hit. He was the first black composer who got an Oscar for Shaft. So the pianist is also having his album Hot Buttered Soul as an icon, which is an absolutely fantastic record. But this one is very often overlooked because Isaac Hayes went into disco, but this is a fantastic sounding record with some
Yeah.
very tight grooves. And still the price sticker on it, it's 10 euro. Bought it
10
here.
euro.
It's
Nowadays, not
nowadays.
not
No,
2000. Okay.
nowadays.
Okay. Wow.
So a fantastic disco and funk record. I absolutely love it.
Maybe
And
you
you give me
know that how much do I have to pay for an Shaft original in a very good shape? You know that by any chance?
between 30 to 50
Okay.
because they have been sold like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but
And
still, this is
yeah,
reasonable and makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah. But that's I have seen some when I was in the United States. I can't say
Mhm.
it here for Europe, but
Mhm.
I have seen some in the United States, and they're very, in very good shape. All right, we're now getting a little back into soul,
Good.
and we will be featuring Carolyn Franklin.
Okay.
Carolyn Franklin is a fantastic singer. She was a composer, and she never made it big through because the problem is if your sister is Aretha Franklin, you are having a problem.
Okay.
And she also wrote some songs for Aretha that were
Yeah.
quite successful.
Younger
And
younger or older sister?
I think younger sister.
Okay.
She passed away in the mid 80s because of cancer. And in the late 70s, when Aretha was a little bit struggling with her career, actually she made a recording which was called Sparkle. It was done by Curtis Mayfield, tremendously successful. But
Mhm.
Curtis Mayfield offered her the record first, the recordings first. But then the father, Reverend Cleveland, not Reverend Cleveland, but the father Franklin, said, it might be better if you give Aretha a chance to do that, because after Aretha heard the track, she said, I have to do that. And
Okay.
Caroline was never bitter about it, but you have to absolutely check her out. She is
Amazing story. I didn't know that. Are they familiar when it comes to the singing? You hear this is family, or is it totally different?
you hear if you listen to it. Before I knew that, because Franklin is a common name, I was like, it sounds a little bit like Aretha, and then Franklin, she's the sister, and so, but she's a little different, and it still sounds absolutely great. So if you have a chance to come and check these Carolyn Franklin records
Very
out.
careful.
All right, now we want to get a little funky.
Okay, Thor can't. Thor wouldn't be Thor if he have an recommendation on its own, and he recommends the Goombay Dance Band.
Mm-hmm.
Have any Goombay Dance Band?
No, but I know them.
Who doesn't in Germany?
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? All right. So I have some left. Let's get into more funk. And you know who did Cherish, the song Cherish, which was a big hit? Ladies'
No,
Night.
no, no.
Cherish the love we have. Come on, Michael. That was also
I
your
don't
time.
know that. I always avoided this kind of music in my younger years. It was too
Oh,
soft. I
it was.
missed. It was not dark enough. It was friendly. Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
you
I
know.
see. Cool and the
Yes,
Gang. You know
yes.
Cool and the Gang.
Cool and the Gang. Oh, I sorry. Let's get a bit into my past. Cool and the Gang. If I was out and Cool and the Gang came, I was afraid that I'd die. that was so not my cup of tea. And you know, getting older is a good thing because you get softer and you get more open. And now I say it's okay. But in my younger years, Kool and the Gang was the red flag. So,
All right, maybe we can change that.
no, it has already changed. It
It's
already
very
has.
good. All right, very good. So in 1975, Kool and the
Beautiful.
Gang released an album, and this is considered a funk masterpiece. So James Brown once said, if they release a new record and you're going to the record store and you buy a tape and you drive home, they are the second baddest shit after me. So this is an absolutely great funk record. I love it from the beginning to the end. I mean, it has also fantastic cover art.
I just want to say that the jacket, the cover art alone is worth getting a record sometimes, and this is one of the
Absolutely.
cases. Yeah.
So this is an absolutely amazing record from Kool and the Gang,
Wow.
and they came a far way from this record to Ladies' Night and Cherish.
Let's get for a brief second into John Bandy's comment, because I really second that. We need some other labels, audiophile labels, than Friday Music for the soul music. But I think we have Vinyl Me Please now doing it more and more. And at least in my case, I'm quite satisfied with them. And I think you too, right?
Absolutely. They do great stuff.
Those Friday Music releases are hit and miss.
I heard that too. So sometimes you're lucky, and then another release comes out, and it's
what is
not
this?
good at all.
See, it's same here, Divaros. The cover art alone was
Yeah. So yeah, John Moreno is correct. Jungle Jazz is a killer. It's an absolutely great record. And I bought this in a German record store, and I still sometimes I keep the price stickers on it, and it was at 25 euros. It's an original US pressing, and it's great.
I agree, Angelo, but music on a vinyl, again, in general, same as Friday Music, same as, in my opinion, Orc, hit and miss. Hit and miss. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Like that. All right. Now we are going from funk to a little more disco again. I have some of the group. This group was one of the biggest acts in the 70s in the United States, but also all over Europe. And this group was called First Choice.
Okay.
This group tracks have been sampled so many times. Let No Man Put Us Under, and Extremely Dangerous. So by the mid to late 70s, many musicians from Philadelphia International changed labels. They were not happy. It's the same thing that happened to Motown, that people left, that happened to Philadelphia International. They went to Cell Soul. And for a couple of years, Cell Soul was the leading label for disco music. It was a Cell Soul orchestra. There were some great artists on Cell Soul, and this was disco, but it was not cheap disco.
Yeah.
It's very well arranged, and this is also a mixture between disco and soul. This is the first record they were discovered when they were 15, and this is their first record, and it's Extremely Dangerous. This is one I absolutely recommend to get because it includes all the big hits, and you can get that record between 10 to 15, 20 euros. So it has like Dr. Love, which was a big hit. It has Let No Man Put Us Under. And many of these tracks are now being used in vocal house music.
Okay.
Many tracks.
Interesting.
So this is just, I can't recommend this group enough. If you find something from First Choice.
Say the name again, please. First Choice.
Okay. First Choice. So if you find some of them, go and get it. You won't be disappointed. And I absolutely need more space. My house is too small. I need to buy.
Yeah, this is an important topic now, and an important question. Nadine, do you have a place to dance in your home? Because disco, funk.
Yes, absolutely. I do have. It's a very small place, so I have an explanation for myself why I dance so bad. Because the place is so small, it's like standing So exactly. So and to me it looks good,
Yeah,
but
I
it's a very
remember
small.
in the 80s we danced like this somehow. We
Yes,
didn't need much
where
space.
popper or waver,
Yeah, genau.
Yeah. After a little disco upbeat, we get into Randy Brown.
Randy.
Welcome to My Room, 1978. He released a couple I wish I would have a disco ball. He released a couple of tracks, and he started out in the 70s. None of the records were a success, and by the late 70s, a school friend who was a famous producer called him back into the studio. They recorded some tracks that were so popular that Randy recorded a whole album. He released afterwards a few more albums, but this one is the way to go. This is a soulful disco album. Welcome to My Room. That's a fantastic record.
So in this time, no ringwear. We have a real mirror now, right?
Yeah, we have here a slightly ringwear. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, this is an original UK, and
Okay.
this is more expensive. I think it's between 30 to 50 euro than the original US UK, which is between 5 to 10 euro.
Maybe some secret knowledge about the better pressing. This things happens. Yeah.
Other
Maybe
stamps,
something
or
like
who
that.
knows? Who knows?
Exactly.
Now we are back into some disco. And I love the cover art of this record.
Of course. You know
So
why? It's great.
it's absolutely stunning, and the music on it is absolutely stunning. The cover art was done by a company which was called Gibrid, and was
Okay.
founded by the beginning of the 70s. And they did cover art for all the major labels, because in the 70s the cover apartments they were overworking, and so they gave the work to Gibrid. And at the mid to end 70s, Gibrid was doing all the Donna Summer stuff, all the big projects, and they just did a fantastic work. And Lalomai Washburn did this one album, My Music is Hot, which is absolutely classic. It is fantastic disco, upbeat music. And then she vanished, disappeared, and a couple of years ago, she made a new record.
But it's so not 70s, this jacket, right?
Absolutely not.
So not.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
It's
Interesting.
yeah, and I fell in love with the cover first,
Mhm.
and then I heard the music, and it's just absolutely stunning. I think it's from 77. Yeah, exactly. This came out in 1977, and this is just awesome. This is the back cover.
A little more 70s.
Yeah, but
Nice.
this is just also very affordable. 10, 20 euros.
Cool. I'm so happy, and honestly, when we talked about it, the idea of an originals on budget when it comes to soul, funk, disco, I'm totally impressed, Nadine, how many copies, how many records you found that are really, really, really not that far out there. Amazing, amazing. Your knowledge is wow. I'm stunned.
Thank you very much.
No,
Thank you.
unbelievable.
All right, now let's get into 1976 with The Undisputed Truth. This is The Undisputed Truth was a side project by a producer from Motown. He tested some material with this group and then gave it to the Temptations. And in 1976, they released this album, Method to the Madness. I kept the price ticket. This is 15 euro. They had as a VG and VG record. It's both VG plus.
Okay.
In my opinion, this looks very, very good. This is funky. This is a little spacey, which were famous at that time of the year. 1976 was a great year, up to 1978 and 1979 for music. And so this cost me 15 euros, and it's a fantastic record.
Although I have to say, maybe you disagree this time, the jacket hurts the eye.
Of course it does. Ask Frankie Derrick.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
It's 1976.
Okay.
Of course it does. It has to be sometimes to be a record from the 70s. Another usual suspect, but I think one of their best albums ever been done. It's when you play it, someone said it's disco heaven, and I absolutely have to agree with it. I absolutely have to agree. And you wouldn't expect that really, but let's talk about the Supremes.
Yes, let's talk about the Supremes.
So this one is pretty much beaten up.
Yeah.
Was 5 to 10 euro, but the cover was beaten up, but the record looks absolutely, absolutely fine. And this was, I think, 77, and it's a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic disco record from the beginning to the end. Let Yourself Go, Dream Machine. This is just an absolutely, look how 70s this is.
Yes. Abilities.
So
Abilities is coming in a few years. You see that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is just an absolutely fantastic record and very, very affordable. Yes, Norman Whitfield, correct, John? That was the name.
But this is of course not that expensive. Again, a huge hit,
5
right?
to 10 euros even.
Yeah,
Sold
yeah, but
like crazy.
that is one of the big records at the time.
Yeah,
right?
you have to consider this was their second last album before they disappeared, and
Maybe they're not that big, but okay.
but it was still sold because it was great music on it. All right. Do you know the song Misty Blue?
Maybe if I hear it.
Oh, don't make me sing it. Dorothy Moore
Right.
had oh, please not. Dorothy Moore had a big hit in the late 70s with Misty Blue.
Yeah.
I don't like the album of Misty Blue. I love the song, but this is for me too much country flavored and anything. But a year after it, she released the album Dorothy Moore, and this is from the beginning to the end. Once again, look how beaten this up is, and it's
Yes.
still 8 euros. It's not $1. You know, it's not 3 to 4 to 5. It's still 8 euro. But once again, from the beginning to the end, just a fantastic record. So Dorothy Moore is not just Misty Blue for what she's known. She released some great recordings, and Misty Blue was also sung by not Etta James, Ella Fitzgerald, sorry, and she made Ella Fitzgerald made an album.
Right into Misty Blue. See?
Yeah, but she really made that song her own. So Dorothy Moore is Misty Blue. So, Michael, we haven't finished yet. We are not in the 80s yet. So, 77, a record you can find for 5 euros is called Motown Sounds Space Dance. I love this cover art.
Yes.
I love this cover art. There are some great tracks on it, which were remixed and used for DJs in the clubs. Motown Sounds, 5 euros, 5 to 10, and fantastic sounding recording. Fantastic music. How much time do we have?
We're talking about a sampler here, right?
No, it's not a sampler. This is a group, Motown Sounds.
Okay, sorry. But, okay, I was under the impression that
no problem. They only released one album, but this is just fantastic.
Yeah, the jacket, I have to agree, is unbelievable. Cool idea for a disco.
Absolutely. I would love to be there. On the bar, of course.
Who wouldn't? Yeah. We will do something similar in Den Bosch.
Absolutely. I couldn't find a hotel room.
So. You will. You will.
All right. How much time do we have left?
I'm not on a limit here.
Okay. So now a little more soulful with Hodges, James, and Smith, Since I Fell for You. So the producer worked for Motown, so he had connections. So he wanted to build up his own group when he left Motown. He tried it with Hodges, James, and Smith. Didn't really work out. But Since I Fell for You, which is the original German pressing, includes some very great ballads, some great songs. 5 to 10 euros.
Yeah, but you know, you've led us through years and years of this kind of music, and when it comes to the cover art, to the jackets, there is quite a formula, right? The 3 women.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right, from mellow soul to disco, and many people think, when a disco.
But John, so what? All vinyls on a budget. So come on, make a long list. You get a lot of records for not that much money.
Exactly. So this is a great format. So disco is mostly known in the United States or for American music, but other countries produce great disco records also. And
Yes.
there is one singer in from France who
Bonnie M.
is, yeah, exactly,
Okay.
Bonnie M, which was called Bonnie M. And this person is an absolutely icon in France. He did a lot of records during his year. He was the original composer of My Way, which
Yeah.
is the original version is known as Comme Habitude, which has a totally different version than meaning than My Way. But we are talking about Claude Français, or
Mm-hmm.
how it's been called in France, Clo-Clo.
Clo-Clo. Okay.
So this is the last record which was released in his lifetime in December of 1977. Unfortunately, in March of 1978, he had the idea to repair a lamp while taking a bath.
Okay.
So, and he's also known to have brought disco to France. That's not quite correct, right? But Magnolias Forever, Alexandrine, Alexandra are great. He had also a cover version. Everything sounds better in French, I found out. Of And I Love You So, which was a great Dan McLean song. So all in all, this is a 5 to 10 euro record, original France pressing. And once again, I love fancy labels. And
For sure.
hold on,
Yes. Here we go.
yeah,
Look at it.
yeah, that's
Beautiful.
a fancy label.
That's a label.
And that you have an excellent sounding record, and they even wrote on the cover that it's disco music, so you know what you're
How
buying.
did you hear of this record? I mean,
To
if
make a long
I would
story
see the jacket with the cat and the white suit, I would run. But it's so amazing that you know this record and they know this is not as bad as the jacket. This is a good record. Amazing.
never judge a book by its cover. But the story behind this is when I was in my junior years learning in the company in Deutschland, we say in der Ausbildung.
Yeah.
I had to make a trip
The
with my
Francis.
boss. With my boss on who was a very intimidating person, and you're like hours in a car with your boss and like, oh, please don't talk to me. So, and when we crossed the borders, we had the radio stations were switching, and there was a song playing, Alexandrine, Alexandra, all the time was playing, and it was in my mind for the whole time. So when I had the evening off, I went to the hotel and asked where's the record store, and he was like, CD. And I said, no, record store, the big ones. Oh, so, and it was before Google Maps and all of that, late 90s we're talking. So I just went to a record store and I said, listen, I heard a song. It's called Alexandrine, Alexandra. And he said, oh, chérie, it's Clo-Clo up there. And he said, who? And he looked at me and he said, Clo-Clo. And I said, who? And he said, Claude Français. Icon here in France and very famous. He was a little offended that I didn't know Clo-Clo, and that's how I found this record.
Cool, amazing. Liam wants to get into a certain angle, and maybe this is even possible to touch. It's not easy because what is audiophile? But under the aspect, maybe you have an idea. You probably have, which are audiophile sounding soul records, if there are.
That's difficult. So I would maybe recommend some records from Stax, where Isaac Hayes recorded, where some other very famous person recorded. But the main focus, especially on and also you have to consider there was the vinyl crisis, so the oil crisis in the late 70s. So they reused vinyl. And they made this Dynaflex vinyl.
Which can sound great, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, which sounds, I have some of them. So, I would try Stax label, some Warner Brothers, some Barry White records are sounding amazing because he wanted to have a certain room. He wanted to have sound his records. So, but most of the time you have to consider the artist came into the studio and said, okay, this is what you're going to record. They recorded it and then they went. So all was to the engineer, and at that time it was very important to get the product out fast because disco was selling like crazy and also soul. So yeah, but nowadays I would recommend that you coal mine, who did the reissue of Barbara Howard. So the new ones, they might be considered, yeah, coal mine, they might be considered as audiophile. So if you have, like with the Staple Singers, they did a reissue a couple of months ago. So they have the possibilities to go to the master tapes and make a great sounding record out of it. But most of the time back in those days, that was not the main focus. All right.
You have records there? Okay, cool.
I have some more records. Okay, let's discuss Lolita Holloway.
Okay.
Lolita Holloway, she's in the beginning of the 90s. There was a track which was called Right on Time. And Lolita was the one who sang that. And the track was taken from a song, Love Sensation, from the beginning of the 80s. And she's in house and vocal house music, one of the most sampled artists ever. And she was, before she died, very bitter about it because people were making a lot of profits off snippets of her voice and she was never getting any money. So that was a huge problem before she died. But she had some great recordings on it, like this one. This is a double special package for disco DJs. I got this for $10. So you get a long play. You get actually 2 records, a 12-inch and the usual album. And I see it's a demo. Oh, cool. So you have The Greatest Performance of My Life, There Must Be a Reason. So, like again, Lolita Holloway, I can only recommend her. If you can find her, go and get it. Yeah, it's a fabulous cover. Come on.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Amazing.
And she was also on Cell Soul, so you have a great sound. All right. When the 3 Degrees left Philadelphia International, it was not very easy for everybody because the 3 Degrees were the cash cows. And they left because also of money issues, and they found another group which was called the Jones Girls.
Let me guess, 3 girls, all 3 on the jacket? Yes.
Yeah, they're all
amazing. It's all sisters again, okay.
Yeah, only one sister survived. The other ones already died, unfortunately. So this is their first album from 1979, which includes You're Gonna Make Me Love Somebody Else. And this is actually from the beginning of the 80s. And this is where you feel or hear that the Philadelphia International sound, which was more mellow, more sweet, was changing into the 80s direction. So they have a great cover of Children of the Night and Nights Over Egypt on this record, also 10 to 20 euros.
Fantastic. And yeah, you that was a time when those soul records got a different direction, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it was changing. Michael Jackson, really, if you are into this music, so late 70s, early 80s, you totally understand the impact of Thriller.
Excuse me?
Of Thriller, of Michael Jackson's Thriller. You totally understand what a change that was. If you're into this music and then comes Thriller and nothing is going to be the same again.
Okay.
So this really, it's not not, you know, it's the most sold album of all time, Thriller, and that's with a reason, because at that time this was totally different from what was released from other ones. You know, Rick James was great at that time, but yeah, also a very underrated group from the 70s. They had one foot in funk, one foot in disco, and that was called T Connection. Yeah, they had a great some great tracks. The albums are not overall good. There's some inconsistency, but most of the time the tracks are very good. For example, here's included At Midnight, which was a huge hit in the 70s. Once again, 10 to 15 euros, sometimes even cheaper. Now, if we are into funk, a record I think everybody should have in their collection.
Okay.
Instant Funk.
Instant Funk.
Instant Funk, which was a band from Bunny Siegler. We have seen him before, and there's a song included which was called "I Got My Mind Made Up."
Yeah.
So this is a very famous track. There are also tracks on it like "Crying," and you have to imagine many DJs, famous DJs at the time, who were starting to develop house music garage and everything, took also samples from this one, like Larry Levan, who were Frankie Knuckles, who were very famous DJs, who took material from this and made new music out of it.
Yeah, this was quite a time, right? Hip hop, Kraftwerk, the electronic stuff, the dark stuff, gothic. It was unbelievable how many different genres you all of a sudden had in that time. I remember that now I'm 16 years old now, 81.
So not much records left, so I try to be in a certain time frame. Phyllis Hyman.
All good.
Phyllis Hyman. You Know How to Love Me. Loving You is Losing You. She was under the management of Clive Davis, who had some other female vocalists under their contracts. The most famous one, Whitney Houston. Phyllis Hyman was pretty much famous at the late 70s, but actually there is not a bad song she did, but she never really made it big from one reason or another. In the 70s, when she was hot, she wanted to go more into jazz and some other directions. Management said, no, you have to go disco. She wasn't really happy with that. So in the 80s, it was difficult. And she also got offered to sing the title track of the James Bond movie, Never Say Never. She recorded the track, but it was declined at the last minute because somebody needed to do a favor to somebody else. So, but the work is available on YouTube. Also, we are now in 1979, Delegation with Audiophile, which includes Heartache Number 9. That's the most successful album, and this is just a fantastic record from the beginning to the end. And Heartache Number 9 has been sampled many, many times on vocal house classics and has been re-recorded and redone. I just want
to say, Heartache Number 9. Yes. I for sure know this, probably from my times at the weekend in the disco, right? Heartache Number 9.
Absolutely, you know that one. And that's included on this. The first German pressing on Areola. Sounds great. 5 to 10 euros.
Wow.
Yeah, UK group, absolutely stunning. Heartache Number 9.
One question.
Please.
Very, very cheap doesn't always mean you get it every 5 minutes, but those are over at discos and you can get them and
they are out there. They are out there. Delegation.
And when I'm always confronted with problems concerning Discogs when you have 50, 60, 80 different pressings. In those cases, you don't, right?
Yeah, it's with this pressings, it's always difficult. You have some pressings there are super expensive. You have some pressings which sound great, like the Areola one. They had some great sounding records. You get that from 5 to 10, but then you get an Hungarian pressing which sounds like, I don't know, somebody put blankets over my speakers for more money, because in those countries they weren't so often produced.
All right.
Yeah, and in what country they made records out of X-rays? Was it in Russia or somewhere? So.
That was Russia, yes. Yeah. I've seen one. Very interesting. I played one.
Yeah. So where you have the picture of
it sounds better than you expect it to sound. Doesn't sound great, of course, but better than you think. But they don't do that. They had to. I mean,
there was nothing.
In a way, it's impressive. In a way, it's impressive. Yeah.
So last two records, Change. 1980 was also a project, and the lead singer also not, I don't think it's credited on here, but maybe it is, was Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross was in the 70s a very famous backing singer, and Change, this is an absolutely fantastic record, 10 to 15 euros, Angel in My Pocket, A Lover's Holiday. I can't praise this record enough. Change, yeah, go for it. So last one.
The last one. Bonnie M.
Of course, Bonnie M. How did you know that? Greatest hits, Bonnie M. By the rivers of Babylon. All right, Inner Life, 1981. Includes the voices of Jocelyn Brown. Jocelyn Brown had in the mid-80s a huge hit, Somebody Else's Guy, which she also wrote. Do you know something? Yeah. So, and on this album, she had two great songs, which is called, back in the day, there was the impression there are some songs you just don't touch because they are too perfect. And she changed that, and she recorded "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" in a stunning version. And Larry Levan, who was a very famous DJ at that time, made a classical out of it. Also, "Make It Last Forever." Yeah, this is a typical beginning of the 80s cover.
I just want to say this is so 80s in a good sense. Yes,
absolutely. So this is 80s, and yeah, this is just an amazing record. 10 to 15 euros. And yes, Saron did also some tracks with Jocelyn Brown, also some great recordings. So, Michael,
Nadine, you created a classic video.
do you think so?
Yeah.
I feel very honored.
You shared knowledge of decades within an hour, and this is invaluable, in my opinion. So everybody who has the pleasure to see this video, and I'm not saying this because it's on my channel, this is your video, and this is amazing. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the invitation. It was great. I'm happy to introduce people to this genre of music.
And that you did. Yeah, and that you did.
So that's very important, to get the message out there and to get people to know that this is out there. I'm also doing some gospel on my channel. Because there are also
you always, not always, excuse me, sometimes you even have artists also over there, right?
Yeah,
I've seen
exactly.
some videos. Yeah, this is impressive.
So I try to track down the people because I want to hear their stories. This means a lot to me to hear their stories. And also these people are so tremendously thankful, because I think, who are you calling from? Germany? What do you want to sell? Panzer? You know what? Guns? What do you want to sell? And I said, no, I'm interested in your life story. They said, what life story? I mean, you released about 70 or 60 years ago an album. Okay, and how do you know that? And so they are totally impressed that people are interested in that. And this is, I had some funny situation with that, but yeah, I'm trying to get that story.
Yeah, I think this is invaluable again, that when you have those artists over there, and what they can share sometimes is the coolest stuff that's out there.
Yeah. But very often it's always the same story. I was very young when I got out of college. I signed a contract which was not in my best interest. I had a million-seller hit. It's like with the 3 Degrees. They're not getting any much from their sales. And also, Valerie told me, I had the pleasure of meeting her a few times. She said, actually, Nadine, to be totally honest with you, because I always get the question, how was it when you were in the studio and you had "When Will I See You Again" and you knew it was a hit? She told me one night at the bar, honestly, we didn't even want to record that song. And I said, why not? And she said, we thought it was too simple. We had, it was not a challenge for us. We thought it was not good. And Gamble and Huff had to really push them to record that song. And she said, at the end, he was right. It was the million seller. But they are still touring. Barely still touring with some other women who were not original members of the group. But she's not really getting the income from the sales from back then, which were millions and millions and millions and millions. There's a version of "When Will I See You Again" which they did in Japanese.
I think this problem is inherent to the genre. I mean, how many? This somehow fits. How many of the same jackets did we see? You know, the 3 women.
Yeah.
So and this shows what kind of a business. And still amazing how impressive and great the music was. Still, if you consider the circumstances those artists had to work under, right?
Yeah, the difference between today is that you really had to sing. You really had to play an instrument. There was no auto-tune. Yeah, there was nothing of this. So these people really knew what they were doing. And they were very, very talented people. And they only had the chance to record one album. Like Barbara Harwood, she had very much talent. And she should have been more than just being a side note in music history. But there was no YouTube. There was no way to present yourself, to make, you know, you were depending on some local newspapers who might do a report that you released on a private press recording, which might nobody ever hear. So that's so sad, because I heard so much great music. And that's why I also did the channel, because like I said, not the usual suspects, not the Al Greens or Jerry Butlers of this world, but getting to know some of these artists, and you get them probably also very cheap. some of them.
Okay, Nadine, I hope that it was also okay for you doing this, and I hope we see us again here on my channel.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it very much, and thanks for the opportunity, Michael. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Okay. Have all a great night. See you on the next one.
Schönen Abend.
Dir auch.